We're in the book of Judges. We're going to talk about Samson. Last Samson sermon. This is number 3. Judges 16. We're going to read a few verses. It's a little deep, I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like we should read it all. And so we're going to read from verse 4, chapter 16, to verse 22 in chapter 16. Afterward it happened that he, Samson, loved a woman in the valley of Stroup, whose name was Delilah. Verse 5, Judges chapter 16. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, entice him and find out where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to inflict him. And every one of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver. All the lords of the Philistines, the sworn enemies of God, and Samson's sworn enemies. So, verse 6, so Delilah said to Samson, please tell me where your great strength lies, and what may abound you to afflict you. That should have been a wake-up call. And Samson said to her, if they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings, not dried, then I'll become weak like any other man. So the lords of the Philistines brought her 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried, and she bound him with them. Now the men were lying in wait, staying with her in the same room. And she said to Samson, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he broke the bowstrings as strands of yarn breaks when fire touches it. So the secret of his strength was not yet known. So Delilah said to Samson, look, you've mocked me and told me lies. Now please tell me what you may be bound with. So he said to her, if they bind me securely with new ropes that have never been used, then I shall become weak like any other man. Therefore Delilah took new ropes, bound them, and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. And men were lying in wait, staying in the room, but he broke them off his arms like thread. Delilah said to Samson, until now you've mocked me and told me lies. Tell me what you may be bound with. So he said to her, if you weave 7 locks of my head into a web of a loom. So she did that. She wove them tightly and batted of the loom, and said to him, the Philistines are upon you. And he woke from his sleep and pulled out the batted, and web up from the loom. And she said to him, now listen to this. How can you say you love me? How can you say I love you? Look what she's using against him. How can you say I love you when your heart's not with me? You've mocked me these 3 times and have not told me where you get your strength. Verse 16. And it came to pass when she pestered him daily with her words and pressed him so that his soul was vexed to death. She was nagging him to death. How many had that happen? Verse 17. That he told her with all of his heart, and he said to her, no razor had ever come upon my head, for I've been an Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If I'm shaven, then my strength will leave me, and I'll become weak like any other man. Verse 18. Then Delilah saw that he had told her with all his heart. She sent a call from the lords of the Philistines, saying, come up one more time, for he's told me all his heart. It's on him. My belly must have touched it. See what happens. So the lords of the Philistines came up to her and brought money in their hand. Then she lulled him to sleep on her knees and called for a man to shave off the locks of his head. And she said, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. He awoke from his sleep. He said, I'll go out as before the other times. I'll shake myself free. But he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. God said, enough. You've broken your last commitment. I won't be with you anymore. God stepped away. He had no power. Then the Philistines took him, put his eyes out, brought him down to Gaza. They bound him with bronze fetters, and he became a grinder in the prison. However, the hair on his head began to grow again after it had been shaved. Now let me give you just a brief introduction. I don't believe that Samson broke free repeatedly. The Philistines did not come upon him. I believe the enemy was in the room, waiting to see if it would work. Because Samson was a Nazarite to God from the womb of his mother. He had a barren mother. A Nazarite couldn't do a few things. A Nazarite could not drink from anything from the vine or eat anything from the vine. A Nazarite could not touch dead things, and a Nazarite could not shave his head. Those were three commitments that broke a Nazarite commitment to God, a separation to God. Now Samson was strong. Samson had abilities. Samson had been warring with the Philistines. God called Samson from his mother's womb in chapter 14 of the book of Judges, and God told Samson's mother, he shall be a deliverer to the people. He shall make war with the enemies of God, those who oppress God's people, which were the Philistines. The Philistines had many lords, and these lords all came together with one common enemy, Samson. And so here's Samson, running from God, breaking God's commitments, doing things he shouldn't do. And he was not a deliverer for God. He was not the man God called him to be. Samson continued to go down the wrong path. And here's Samson, again, in another bad relationship, doing what he knows he shouldn't do. And God's power left Samson. Samson is a man that has been called by God to be separated to holiness, to be a type of savior to the people, to be a mighty leader to the people of Israel. Samson's done just the opposite. Samson is a man that had more ability. Samson's a man that had more talent. Samson is a man that was blessed more than any other judge in the book of Judges. But guess what Samson did? Less. He did less than any other man in the whole book of Judges. The people never had peace when Samson was in the office of a judge. The people never had freedom. And in the end, they'll pull Samson out of rubble, buried in a premature death, in a shallow grave with the enemies of God's people. Blinded, head shaved, a mockery of the enemies of God, a byword, something that they made fun of, without dignity in the end. She wanted to know Samson's strength. Samson was a man that God gave strength to. Samson's strength was not in his hair. His hair was a sign of his commitment to God. Samson's strength was in his call as a man of God. A man who was supposed to be separated to God. A man that was supposed to have a life of holiness. That was his strength. God was his strength. He was strong. He defeated many, many, many enemies. Many times should have been the end for Samson. Samson should have died many times by all odds, but he didn't. Guess what it did? It made him cocky. It made him arrogant. It made him feel like he was bulletproof. Like he could eat bullets and poop ice cream. Many of you in this room have been dead close to many times. And you've gotten out of it. And because of that, you're cocky. You call yourself a tough guy. One day it will be the end. One day God's going to say, enough. Go ahead, Samson. See, that's what happened. Samson's weakness was not a lack of strength, Freeway. Samson's weakness wasn't a lack of ability. Samson's strength, our weakness was not the Philistines. It was his lust for women. That's what his weakness was. His weakness was a lust for women. And he went from one bad relationship to the next bad relationship to the next unhealthy, toxic relationship. And it made a man that was strong, that should have been a great, mighty deliverer for God, a weakling. It took him. And this isn't just for the men, this is for the ladies too. How long are you going to keep to the next losing your job, to the next losing your money, to the next losing your kids, over a stinking relationship because you're not ready. What will it take? How long do you got left? How many more commitments are you going to break? Samson. I'm going to start crying. It breaks my heart. Samson had a bad relationship history. First relationship started when he refused to listen to godly counsel. Judges chapter 14. His parents loved Jesus. They said, hey Samson, do you really think you need to go and hook up with the Philistines, the enemies of God, this ungodly pagan family, these ungodly pagan woman? You know what Samson said? He said, she pleases me well. Guess what happened? She ended up sleeping with the best man. People got killed. Her and her father got burned alive. Samson had his own people turn on him. He ended up in chains. It almost cost him his life. Relationship number 2. Samson finds a prostitute in Gaza. He's no longer being tempted. He's looking for it now. Almost cost him his life. Relationship number 3 would be the end for him. This will be the relationship that leads to Samson's life being taken from him. He will be blind. He will be bound. He will be ashamed. He will be put in prison. He will be made a mockery of. And the power of God will not be with him anymore. You say, I love it, preacher. I love her, preacher. We're meant to be together. You love her like Samson loved that other woman. And you love him like Samson loved that woman. Samson in verse 4 said he loved Delilah. It wasn't love. Just because you say it's love, it doesn't mean it's love. If you were to ask Samson, do you love her? He would say yes. If you would ask Samson, did you love her, the other woman? He would say yes. If you say, Samson, did you love that woman you met in Judges 14 that got burned alive because of you? He would say yes. Yes, I love them. I love them all. This is a King Solomon type of love. The wisest and richest man in the whole entire Bible. God gave him the wisdom from God. God gave him all the riches. 1 Samuel chapter 11, verse 1. He loved the Mennonites, the Sidonites, the Edomites, the Hittites. He had lots of women he loved. Some of you think, man, I walked into the wrong sermon. No, you walked into the right sermon. The great reformer of Israel, Nehemiah, said this about this type of love. Did not, Nehemiah chapter 13, verse 26, please check me out, see if I'm telling you the truth. Read that Bible. Nehemiah 13, verse 26. Did not King Solomon, the king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations there was no king like him, who was beloved by his God, and God made him king over all Israel. Now listen, nevertheless, pagan women even caused him to sin. I'm not here to beat up on women. This is a toxic relationship, sir. It goes for men and women. I see people fall in this place. And I say the thing that you hate me to say at the beginning of every sermon. I don't care how much you hate it. I'm not here to make a fan club. Relationships is the number one cause for relapse. Number one. I hate it. I hate seeing people fall. When people really love you, let me just give you, this is a freebie. When people really love you, they do not use your weaknesses against you.
Come on, preacher.
When people love you, they do not use your weaknesses against you. That's the first sign. What'd she do? Tell me what makes you weak. Tell me what takes your strength. Tell me what binds you. If you love me, you'll tell me. The first point is this. Lust will make you blind. Lust will make you blind.
That's right.
Do you think Samson sought counsel before he pursued Delilah? Samson wasn't looking for a wife. Samson was looking for pleasure. Samson went to Gaza looking for pleasure, not for a wife. Immediately in verse 1 of chapter 16, he finds a prostitute. Immediately in chapter 16, verse 4, he falls in love again with another woman. Imagine Samson lays down with this woman night after night. And the number one question she has for Samson is, how can you be overpowered? What makes you weak? So over and over and over again, she tests Samson to find out what his weakness is. Over and over and over, she pesters him daily to find out what makes him weak. First, he lies. I don't know why he did that. Samson, he tells her it's the bowstrings. Then he tells her it's new ropes. Then he tells her it's his hair being tied in a loom. Don't you think he did it by now? He was blind. Don't you think he did it by now? You keep going back. Thinking it's going to change. Doing the same thing, the same way, with the same people, in the same place, thinking this time it's going to be different. Because lust has blinded you. I bet you Samson thought this woman had a sixth sense of humor, right? I keep waking up and I'm tired. I don't know what's happening. Is this a joke? Is this what the Philistines do or what? I mean, is this a cultural thing? Do you think Samson knew that the fourth time would be his last time? Do you think that Samson knew the fourth time he went back would be the very last time he would have his eyes? The very last time he would have his freedom. The very last time he would have his hair. He didn't know. You say, I got this, preacher. I'm strong. I've been in prison. Woo! So what? Samson was strong. All the strength in the world cannot help you defeat sin, tough guy. You can hit me, beat me, I don't care. I'm going to preach the gospel of Jesus Christ and tell you the truth until I don't have breath left. Listen to Proverbs chapter 7. This is about the immoral relationship. Listen to this. Proverbs 7. You men and women need to read this chapter over and over again. Proverbs 7 verse 25. Listen. Let your heart not turn aside to her ways. Do not stray into her path. For many victims she has laid low. And all her slain were mighty throng. Her house is the way to hell, going down into the chambers of death. Focus on verse 6. All her slain are mighty throng. You know what that means? A multitude of very strong men have died this way. They were all strong. They were all strong. Doesn't matter how strong you are. This is the point. There's a multitude of strong men that have thought the same thing you think today. that they're different and they got this. Lust made him a fool. Lust made him a fool. You know the adage, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. There's a pattern in Samson's life. Samson got involved in an ungodly relationship in chapter 14. People died. People got hurt. Things turn out bad for everyone involved. How many relationships in your life have I just explained? Samson goes to Gaza, not looking for commitment, not trying to find a godly wife. Samson went to Gaza looking for pleasure, and he ends up surrounded by the enemy. Then Samson once again gets trapped in an ungodly relationship, not once, but 3 times in a row. Let me make an application. The police got called every night he was there. Almost went to jail every time. Every time Samson laid in the bed, this woman, the enemy, was right by him, Joe. He didn't even know it. The enemy was right there in that room. Every time we went there, the enemy was there. Samson kept going back to the same place. Samson kept going back to the same relationship. Samson kept going back to the same scenery, thinking one time this might change. Say, man, you're getting in my business, preacher. That's my whole point. That's what I'm trying to do. If I could talk to Samson, what would I say tonight? I'd say, Samson, those relationships are not built around the Lord. They will never work. I'll say, Samson, every time you go back to that woman or that man, the enemy is waiting for you. One day you won't come out. I'll say, Samson, one day you'll go to that house, you're going to lose everything you have, and you have no clue how close to danger you really are, Samson. Last month, I preached revival for a little country church. I was there 4 days in Rolla, Missouri. A pastor friend of mine asked me if I'd come and share the word in Salem Treatment Center, SEMO. I said, sure I will. So, not having any time to prepare, he came and got me. The next day was Wednesday morning. I went to SEMO to share the word with a bunch of knuckleheads just like me. I talked about the pitfalls of relationships in recovery, and how jumping into one without being ready was a sure way to shipwreck your walk with God and your sobriety. Then I asked a question. I want you to listen to this. There was 30 people in the room. I said, how many people in this room are here? And the reason you're here has something to do with a bad relationship. Raise your hand. Guess how many hands were up? All 30 hands. I said, how many in this room know how to have a healthy relationship? Raise your hand. What are you doing trying to have one then? Why would you even try? Have a healthy relationship with Jesus Christ. That's where you start, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
Get your life right with God. Get discipled. Get your own car. Get your own place to live. Get your own job. Get your own life together. Get your kids back. Get your family back. Do that first. I would like to address Samson tonight, men and women. Answer yourself this question. How many times are you going to keep going back to that same situation expecting things to change? How many times are you going to keep going back expecting things to change? One day you're going to go back, and it's going to be your last time. Your last time. You're going to be in a prison cell. Your kids are going to call. You're going to call your kids. And you're going to say, I want to be home soon. It'll be the last time. Enjoy that picture of me on the dresser, because that's as close as you're going to get to me because of this relationship. tried. Samson lost his strength. Samson lost his sight. Samson lost his freedom. Samson lost his life. We're going to end there. We're going to come back in 15